Hey guys, thanks for joining me today for Major Players. And I got my man, Brad Blazar here, the number one capital raising coach. And I bring this to you guys because I like to introduce people that are playing at a major level and they're major players in their space because you should be connecting with people like this. And today I brought one of the guys who's really doing that. Thanks for joining me today, Brad. I really appreciate you.
I appreciate it, man. It's great to be here with you, Victor.
For sure, for sure. So, man, I just want to jump right into it. Like you are known as, we talked about it, and you're known as a $2 billion man. Like, how did you do that? Like, what's your story?
Yeah, so I'm kind of known as the $2 billion guy, and it
Mhm.
largely has to do with the amount of money that's been raised through my efforts and the efforts of very small teams that I've led and put together over the years. But my whole journey in capital raising started at a very young age. It was actually in my early 20s where I was going to school,
Mm.
and I was actually going to school to become an architect.
Oh, wow.
And like a lot of kids that are off at university, I, got a part-time job, and that job was with this very small oil company where the founder and CEO of that company took a liking to me. I was just, this little confident, cocky kid.
Yeah.
And he basically said, look, if you can come here between classes and come here after school, we'll, teach you a skill. And that skill is how to get on the telephone,
Mm.
how to build relationships with wealthy people that are going to be investing with us in our oil and gas drilling programs. And so here I was 21 years old when I started,
Uh-huh.
and I was going to work about 12, 15 hours a week, making really good money. And then after a year, I went to work for a second oil company doing exactly the same thing. And unfortunately, it was discovered that that second company was doing things a little dishonestly.
Mm.
Their values didn't align with mine.
Yeah.
And so I immediately resigned, and basically the investor community or the investor base that I had put together turned to me and said, well, Brad, what are you going to do now? And at the time, I didn't know, but I saw this huge like door just open up where I realized all these investors trusted me. And
Mm.
so at the age of 23, I started my own business.
Wow.
I basically dropped out of school, didn't know the first thing about drilling an oil well, didn't know the first thing about running a multi-million-dollar business, but I had mentors and started an oil company. And we built that up over the course of a little over a decade to a pretty nice medium-sized business, drilling for oil and natural gas and places like Texas, Oklahoma, Louisiana. And it just continued to flourish and continue to grow until I decided to exit and enter the financial services industry, raising capital for other people, plus now raising capital for projects and deals of my own.
Right. So, and you did all that stuff well, all that happened when you were younger. That was in Texas as well?
Correct. Yeah. So basically, most of the drilling activity that we were involved in with the capital that we were raising, it was all either Texas, Oklahoma, or Louisiana. Those were
Mm.
like the three states that we focused on for our drilling activities. And we would put together just small drilling deals, go out and raise the capital. And then we would basically go to the companies that had the rigs and the equipment and everything to actually do drilling for us. And if we hit, great, we would produce the oil and natural gas and distribute the proceeds to investors. Luckily, we had a really, really good track record because we were doing what we call developmental drilling,
Mm.
which is drilling on proven established fields rather than wildcatting. But in the late 1980s, Victor, two things really affected the oil and gas industry. Number one was energy prices collapsed
Mm.
because OPEC was in much more control back in those days. And then number two, in the late 1980s, the government created what was called the Tax Reform Act, and they took away a lot of the incentives
Right.
that were in place that really fueled investor capital. And so we saw two major changes. One is the evaporation and disappearance of the tax incentives. And
Hmm.
then number two was collapsing energy prices. And so I just said, man, here I am, a small little medium-sized oil company. I'm certainly not one of these big behemoths or these big giants. And the last thing I wanted to do was, take all the money that I had made and just keep pumping it back into the business without any uncertainty as to the future.
Right.
And so I just said, slowly collapse the business. We closed the doors. It took us a little over a year. I did it the right way. We gave all of our employees severance. We took care of their
Nice.
families. We
Yeah.
luckily never had to consider or file for bankruptcy because we had no debt. We were a
Mm,
debt-free business. And so when that happened, I was, at a point in life where I'd done well, but here I am now unemployed, not knowing where the next chapter's going to be, not knowing where my next paycheck's going to come from. And so when I collapsed the business, what I did is I went back to college. And I went
okay.
back to school because I had actually withdrawn and basically turned my back to start the business. And I thought, well, nobody's going to hire this high school dropout guy that doesn't have a college degree.
Hmm.
And so after about 2 years finishing up my undergraduate studies, I came out with honors in finance and went out interviewing. And, the sad thing was people wanted to hire me, but I
Hmm.
was overqualified. Here I'm getting
Mm,
offered salaries that were close to what I would make in a good month. And I'm
right.
like, guys, man, I was making 12 times as the founder of my own business. I can't accept your offer. I'm sorry. And so I would admit, I went through a period where I was, basically depressed,
Mm,
disillusioned, kind of bounced from one career to another. I thought about going into law.
right.
And finally, what hit me is the reality that I had this skill, and
Mm,
it's what I call my primary hard skill. That is, I know how to raise capital. And I
mm,
said to myself, I bet that is a skill that a lot of companies should pay a hell of a lot of money for. Sure enough, it was. And
right.
so I went to work for some of the country's largest real estate investment firms. I went to work for some of the world's largest financial services companies, literally
Mm,
raising hundreds of millions of dollars for them. And so
wow.
when you cumulatively add all that up
Yeah.
over my career, it's well north of 2 billion plus.
Dude, that's crazy. The reason why I
Big
say that is the congratulations on that, man. Thanks for being successful. Seriously, like always, that's why I'm doing this because I like to, I mean, I'm selfish, I'm honest, like I'm doing it with you for others, but I'm learning too.
Yeah,
So
absolutely. You bet.
yeah, yeah. And I recognize everyone that I talk to, yourself, even what you just said, like they either had an experience or they had exposure, and you had both. So, which
Yeah.
is what you said. So, and thanks for sharing that with me. So, I have a question about this. So, were you raised around money, or was it, I mean, like, what was your parents bringing it up, household? Like, well, how was it when you were?
Well, I say yes and no. So no, I mean, I grew up in your traditional, middle class household. My dad was an executive, and he did well, but he certainly wasn't rich. I had three siblings, and
Uh-huh.
my mom was a stay-at-home mom until me and my siblings got older, and then she went to work
Hmm.
in Dallas as a realtor. But we were just traditional, average middle class. Now,
Yeah.
with that being said, I did have a very rich, wealthy uncle, so very
Mm,
similar to Robert Kiyosaki in his book, Dad Poor Dad. I did have this uncle that was extremely wealthy, and I kind of
mm,
emulated him. I wanted him to teach me what he knew. And every time I saw him, I was asking questions and learning from him, and really realized that his lifestyle and the things he had and did were very different than what we had in our average middle class family.
right.
And so, it was seeing that and really understanding, okay, this is what I want. I
Mm,
see what it was he did to create that wealth. He was a very successful business owner. He sold his company, and through the sale of his business, that's what obviously created the wealth for him in his
mm,
life. But it was really just learning from him and being around him that I think planted that seed in me that said, okay, there's more. I
right.
want more. Because I think that for most people, comfort is not our friend, and that's really,
Yeah.
I think, what keeps a lot of people from being hugely successful
Hmm.
is they get too comfortable. And then they realize, okay, I'm comfortable. I got a nice car. I live in a nice home. I'm able to provide and put food on my table.
Right.
Sure. But to go from comfortable to hugely successful, what's
Hmm.
the difference? Oh, more work. Okay.
Yeah.
Most people don't want harder or
Right.
longer. The funny thing is, it's not that you're working harder, it's you're working smarter.
Hmm.
There's a big difference. And I think that a lot of people really don't ever figure out, what their primary skill is. And so when I consult and I work with people, one of the things I ask them is, Victor, what is the biggest opportunity that is in front of you right now?
Right.
And if you can focus on that biggest opportunity, what's holding you back from pursuing that, And 9 out of 10 times, it's not the fear, it's the fact that they don't have the capital. They just lack the money to
Mm.
capitalize on that big dream or that big opportunity. Well, the sad thing is most people don't realize that when they roll out of bed every day, they're surrounded by all the money they need to pretty much do anything in life they want and desire. We just call these other people investors.
Right, right. And I was going to
And
ask
most
you about
people
that.
are never taught.
Yeah,
Yep. Most
yeah.
people were never taught how to approach investors or how to work with investor capital,
Mm.
which is really kind of why we started and why we launched our entire platform here at Connections.
Right, right. No, and I appreciate that. And to go with what you said, I always find that too. Like most of the times, people's problem is usually I always say it's lack of access. Right? So like
Mm-hmm.
sometimes people don't have access to something and which is what attracted me to you a while back. It was like what you just said. It's like it isn't that people lack the skills. Sometimes they just lack the capital. And if you had
Correct.
access to capital, what would your world look like? What would what kind of deals would you go after or businesses would you acquire? Man, that's huge. And nobody had ever explained
Yep.
that to me. And you're one of the first people that I heard put it that plainly, too. So
Mm-hmm.
how were you as a kid? Were you like super competitive? Like were you just like I know you do a lot of things and stuff like that. You play tennis or something, right? I think or I know you do golf, but like were you a competitive kid? Was it kind of a nature thing for you or what?
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, like I said, I had, three other siblings. And so I
Mm,
think just, there's that sibling rivalry that you have with
yeah.
your siblings. But I was also pretty competitive. I always wanted to be the best or be the fastest or
Mm,
whatever it was. And so yeah, there was definitely this little competitive aspect to my upbringing. um, Always, doing good in school, doing good in athletics, or at least trying to do good. I wasn't always the fastest, but certainly put forth the effort. But I think that it was just the spirit that also my parents fostered in us.
yeah. Yeah.
Just being raised the right way versus the wrong way. They always
Mm,
basically, in our upbringing, taught us to, work hard, get good grades, stay out of trouble, all those different things. And so largely
right.
in my upbringing, one of the things that my parents did to kind of keep us out of trouble was to enroll us in a lot of curriculum after school activities. They knew, hey, if he's running track or he's over here playing tennis, he's not hanging out with the gangs
Yeah.
and he's not involved in the riffraff.
Hmm.
And so I largely also taken that into how I raise my daughter. It's, I know if she's at dance or she's at theater, she's not hanging out here with the bad crowd of kids. And
Right.
so I just think that it was that exposure that really allowed me to do well in school and just kind of instill a lot of the habits and a lot of the thoughts that I've carried with me throughout my adult life.
Yeah, yeah, I totally agree with that. And I asked that question because I'm always like, was somebody competitive or like how were they when they're little? Because I always feel that base, like that foundation, translated a lot into what you do. Like you said, like
Absolutely.
yeah,
Yeah.
going into other places and really being a part of a team and looking to drive teams forward to do that, whether they're raising
Yeah.
capital or just, hitting a target. So that's interesting. That's really interesting. So like right now, and I saw you were just in Florida. You got some clients that are doing like the world's first golf course, right? Is that what the indoor golf course? That's
It's the
crazy.
world's first indoor golf course. Right. Yep, called Megalodome Golf. It is
Yeah.
a true golf course, 9 to 12 holes, and the longest
Wow.
yardage is about 275 yards. So you can hit
Hmm.
the ball, with your woods, and it'll have a clubhouse and it'll have a practice area. But yeah, it's the world's first large indoor golf course, real golf, all under 5 major domes. And
Wow.
we've been brought on as capital advisor and consultant for the project. They're looking to raise about 50 to 60 million dollars, and the very
Hmm.
first one will actually be up in Oswego, Illinois. There's
Mm.
tremendous interest. We were down in Orlando and they're meeting with the Chamber of Commerce and the people there because Orlando would love to have one down there. They're going over to Dubai in a couple of weeks and connecting with the royal family over there. As you can imagine, of course, Dubai can certainly afford to bankroll a project like that
Yeah.
all on its own. I think that there is tremendous potential just because golf is such a universal global sport
Hmm.
and nobody's ever done this before.
Right.
It's a huge undertaking, but these guys have the vision, they have the team, they have the architects, they've investigated. These will be some of the largest domes in the United States once the project is complete and up and running. But what it brings is the experience of year-round golf. It's no
Yeah.
longer seasonal. When there's 3 feet of snow on the ground in Chicago, you're inside this climate-controlled dome, and you can still go out and hit your balls and still play
Wow.
around the golf. And same thing in the desert. When it's 120 degrees out in Arizona,
Yeah.
you don't have to be out in the heat. You can be indoors in climate-controlled environment. So I think it's really going to be revolutionary. We're real excited about it, and it's a pretty cool project indeed.
Wow, dude. And I saw there's some pictures and stuff like that you have posted and things, and I was like, dude, that's interesting. And along with everything, like you said, with raising capital, I always find that guys who raise capital, people who are in finance, whether it's real estate or anything, like there's the first movers, and then it comes along. So how much easier is it to raise capital or to go to like family offices or institutions and things when you have a project like, you know, that's a development project, golf, very specific, niched. I'm in multifamily real estate here in San Diego County, institutional, bigger deals. How much easier is it to raise capital for something bigger than what you see some of the other people who are trying to kind of do some small projects?
Well, I don't know that it's really, quote, easier.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
really just following a proven system, a proven process, and blueprint.
Mm,
It's just a bigger project in terms of its scale. And it requires, I think, a different type of investor. When you look
right,
at the
right.
different types of investors, there's, of course, the average high net worth accredited investor. These are the doctors, the business owners, the entrepreneurs that live amongst us in society.
Hmm.
Typically they might invest 20, 50, 100, $200,000 or whatever.
Right.
And then, of course, you have family offices. These typically are business owners that have had successful business exits. They've come into a tremendous amount of wealth. These are people like Michael Dell or, Mark Cuban, like
Hmm.
Bill and Melinda Gates. And then, of course, you have broker dealers, you have registered investment advisory firms. If you're a
Hmm.
startup company and maybe you're pre-revenue, you're probably better off talking to a venture capital firm. If
Mm,
you're a little bit more seasoned, you might be talking to angel investors or perhaps private equity. And
hmm.
so I always tell people that might be frustrated if they're talking to people, but they're not getting a warm reception. Let's step back and take a look at the avatar and the type of investor that you're actually talking to, because you might just be talking to the wrong group.
Right.
And 9 out of 10 times that might solve the problem.
Hmm.
And so it's really just understanding the investor community and really where you want to be placing your bets and having conversations. Um,
Mm.
most people start off obviously with friends and family or
Yeah.
raising capital from accredited investors. And then once they become good and understand that, they slowly start to gravitate and potentially start having discussions with RIAs and or family offices,
Hmm.
because that's where you can scale and raise considerably more capital.
Right, right. So what do you
Mm-hmm.
think some of the biggest challenges? I mean, you have people who are your clients, things like that. I have a fund. It's a first time fund. It's a 506c. So like what do you think some of the bigger
Yeah.
challenges that you find fundraisers that are raising capital for like what are some of the challenges you see them have consistently all the time?
Well, I think one is going out there when you're not ready.
Mm,
We see that all the time. You don't have the infrastructure, you
mm,
don't have the elements in place to really be a good steward of capital. You're excited, you're out there, you're talking to investors, but in reality, you don't have an accountant on board, or you
right.
lack compliance because you're not working with a team that really understands the regulatory environment and the constraints that you need to work within. The other is just basically not understanding the process. I think one of the big things that we see very commonly is people will pitch to investors very early in the relationship.
Hmm.
And the investors pretend that they're interested. They say, Victor, it sounds like a pretty exciting deal. Can you send me some information so I can take a better look at it?
Hmm.
Well, that's what everybody says when
Right.
you pitch them. So they're just being polite. But then on the back end of that, after you send them everything, they go steer, they go dark. Well,
Yeah.
the reason is that there's no basis of a relationship. It's kind of like dating. It's
Hmm.
like, hey, Victor, we just met once, maybe twice. You're looking at me as if I'm an ATM machine. Slow down the process
Yeah.
and really lead with some value or get to know me, because you can pitch, a little further along in the relationship where now you have a much better chance of me moving forward and actually committing capital.
Hmm.
So one of the biggest mistakes is just, pitching too early in this relationship you're trying to build with people.
Right.
Then I think third, the other big mistake is not having quality materials.
Mm.
Investors today have so many options.
Yeah.
And when you go to market, if you don't look the part and you don't look professional, you're going to stub your toe. And unfortunately, most investors have good memories, and it's very, very hard to get a second chance, especially in the family office or the RIA space.
Yeah.
And so it's really going to market so that you don't come across looking like a mom and pop operation.
Hmm.
You look like you know what the hell you're doing.
Right. And it's funny because I got that from you. Like when I first started, I mean, I'll be honest, I was one of those people because I've been doing real estate. I started off in Texas and then moved to Hawaii and was there for 17 years.
Yeah,
So I've done a lot of real estate. And but to your point, and you've mentioned it, and a few people, like very few people actually learn how to raise capital, even if you've raised money, partners, things like that, like that actually have a system. So
yeah.
when I got your training, it kind of slowed me down. Like I work with Tony, I got a list. This was a while back, and I used the same thing.
Mhm.
It wasn't family offices, but we called, we had a very set conversation. Hey, I'm just wanted to find out if you're interested in investing. If so,
Yeah.
awesome. I can send you some information, give you a call next week. We did the
Mhm.
two-pager, sent it over to them, followed up the next
Yeah.
week. Just want to make sure you got it. Have any questions for me? I'm here for you. We'll let you know if you're interested. But oh, by the way, blah, blah, blah. And that's been ideal.
Yeah. Yep.
So what you're saying, like if someone doesn't know that, like for me, it was always noose around my neck. I got a deal. I'm raising money. If you stared at me too long in the grocery store, I was going to pitch you. So,
Right,
it
right.
got awkward at parties.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but you're absolutely right. Especially as you said, like you the it isn't. It's like going on, like you said, it is like going on a date. It's like you can't get there and be like, let's get married tonight. Is that okay? They're
Yeah.
gonna be like, well, let's eat first. Um, so but
Right.
it goes right back
Exactly.
into
Yep.
what comes first, the chicken or the egg? And the answer is always the egg.
Right.
But you have to decide what your egg is. And I didn't know that because again, I came from the deal side. So, you
Right.
know, you know,
Right.
that was one of the deals probably like when you probably meet people that happens a lot. But I recognize the value of that with what you said because the difference of talking to retail investors, mom and pop, is very different when you're trying to build a relationship with a family office who's like they have a mandate, they're supposed to raise capital, and their first mandate is don't lose it, and
Yep.
they're getting
Exactly.
20, 30 deals at a day.
Right.
That's their job is to sort very quickly. So that's huge. That
Right.
is really huge. So thanks for sharing that with me and with a lot of other people, like even listening to this, for them to know that. So what do you think it really does take if you're going to be great at one, because you're raising capital for your business. So capital is a piece of the business. To me, it's like a second business inside of your business if you're someone like myself who's an operator,
Yep. It
sponsor.
is.
Um,
Absolutely.
what do you think it truly does take for you to become like, we'll just use the name of the show, a major player in your space as it relates to having the capital raising machine going at the same time?
Well, I mean, I think that number one is you've got to be totally convicted to what it is you're doing or what you're working
Mm,
on. I think investors can see that. If you're
yeah,
not confident, if you're not convicted, it's kind of like, well, why should I invest with you if you don't believe in your own deal or you're not totally convicted? So I think confidence and conviction. I think number two, one of the big problems that we see with a lot of people is they're dreamers instead of doers.
hmm,
And they're guilty of basically this thing called randomness in motion, where they're constantly busy doing things, but unfortunately, it's not moving them forward in the right direction.
right,
The third that I think is also very big is there's a big difference between being a solopreneur,
hmm,
trying to do all the things in your business yourself versus being a true entrepreneur.
right,
Investors, when they look at a business opportunity, what they really want to see is certainty of the deal. They want to see, okay, there's this person that's bringing this deal to me, but who's behind them? When I pitch, I'm talking about my team. So
right,
I talk about, hey, Victor, I've got a team that I've assembled over here. I've got Adnan. He's our securities attorney. He's drafted all the documents. He filed the Reg D notice to make the offering effective. He's going to
Mm.
make sure that we dot our I's, we cross our T's. Over here, I got Steve. He's our accountant. And
Hmm.
Steve is going to be keeping all the books and records. At the end of the year, you're going to get your K1, blah, blah, blah. And then
Right.
over here, so, now the investor's like, okay, this guy knows what the hell he's doing. When I look at a pitch deck and there's just one person in the pitch deck and there's no team, it kind of raises my eyebrows. And I'm like, okay, is this person doing everything? Now,
Yeah.
probe a little deeper, and 9 out of 10 times it's no. But it's like, well, then why did you not put that information in there to give
Mm.
me as an investor more comfort? It's all about
Right.
a team, especially as in multifamily. So I think there's that as well, where people just don't know what they don't know, and they kind of go through that learning process,
Mm.
as it relates to what they need to put in their pitch deck to just bring greater certainty to a potential investor that's looking at this for the first time. That's another mistake I think that's very, very easy to correct,
Right.
that people can easily solve for. So as we're working and as we're consulting with business owners and entrepreneurs,
Mm.
it's really all of these different things. Because our whole platform was really created with the premise we want to teach people how to do this right, how to
Yeah.
do it efficiently, how to be compliant, how to get in front of investors. And, we've been at this now going into our 6th year. Like, I can hardly believe that I've been at this for 6 years now.
Yeah.
But when I started our platform, there was virtually no competition in
Mm.
the social media space for people trying to help others raise capital. Like, it was me, maybe one other person.
Right.
Now, man, you swipe through social media, it's like a dime a dozen. We'll help you get investors. We'll help you do this. We'll help you do
Yeah.
that with regards to your investor stack. And the sad and unfortunate thing is, I've actually looked at a lot of the agreements. People out there breaking the law. People out there saying they'll raise capital for you and charge you a consulting fee. That's against the law because they ain't a broker dealer.
That's
They
right.
just don't know what they don't know.
Hmm.
And so you have all these people out there breaking the law, doing things improperly. A lot of people are going to get caught. A lot of people are going to get in trouble. It's
Yep.
unfortunate, but that's just the hard truth. And so what we've really done to kind of differentiate ourselves is we've niched down and actually rebranded and said, okay, we're no longer Capital School, we're
Hmm.
Capital Connections.
I like
Because
that.
once you're investor ready, we physically connect you to the capital source. Like
Mm.
when I was in Palm Beach this past week at this event that was curated with family offices and investment advisory firms, I had about a dozen other people that were there with me, and they
Right.
were pitching deals. They were networking in the room. They were meeting an audience of potential investors. Many are going to be coming to the next one in April with me.
That's
And
right.
so it's starting that process where they start to realize, okay, this is how big time capital is raised.
Hmm.
It's coming to events like this. It's meeting people like Grant Cardone, or the
Hmm.
woman that runs the Latin American Family Office Community, or Jeff Hoffman, who is a co-founder of Priceline, and Ubit, who's a billionaire.
Right.
Now you're starting to connect with a whole different level player and a whole different type of investor. And
Mm.
that's how you meet these people. Yeah, you can certainly get a list, but you're going to get gatekeepers. You
That's
might
right.
get frustrated calling into a family office and not getting where you want to be. But if you're at an event, chances are you're going to be meeting the person in person, the
Right.
decision maker, or in many cases, the actual founder of the family office, because he's invited to speak on a panel, or
Hmm.
maybe he's actually a keynote speaker. And so now they're approachable, they're there, and more
Right.
importantly, they're willing to spend quality time with you.
Yeah. You know what's funny? I always say like Zooms are to meet, rooms are for money. And like
Yes.
the more you can get in a room with people, and that was going to be one of my questions because we're in the process of starting our real estate club. Um,
Mhm.
for that reason, so we can be like, hey, let's get together. And I started in the 90s. So, you couldn't really, there was no way for you to meet anybody unless you went to the room with them and they belly to belly, I like you, I'll give you money, or let's do a deal together. There was no other way. So,
Right.
no, that's great that you're doing. I didn't know you were kind of making the shift. So, man, I'm definitely going to have to join you in some of the stuff you're doing. I actually right now focus on retail investors right now. What do you like
Sure.
about that? Or what do you don't like about that? Because it has been I'll be honest with you, I started off and this is for me, get some coaching. So like I started off doing my first business partners owned a finance company in Austin. So they actually funded my first deal. I bought a portfolio of 24 properties. I didn't know what I was doing. They came in, so I learned the money side, mortgages, second mortgages, structuring the debt, selling the property, selling the warehouse, selling off the debt on the warehouse line, replenishing it. They did a reverse IPO. Actually, Jamie is one of my advisors. She used to own the company for Bell Capital. So she works with me now. So I can ask questions,
Okay.
things like that. Um, that's also been a hindrance for me mentally because I'm like, dude, I started off in kind of like this no money down, creative financing, seller second, sell off distressed assets, things like that world. So as I moved into
Sure.
the conventional space of raise capital, get a loan, get the debt, 60-40 splits into now, I find myself pulled between that world of the old school financial engineering to conventional financing, raising capital. And I just stuck with the conventional because that's the last few deals that I did and it's made the most money.
Sure. Yeah.
What is your thoughts about that as I start to like build a network of people like you did? You're like, hey, these are all people who want to connect with, let's say, family offices, people who are further along. My real estate club, I'm trying to stick to retail investors. Is that valuable to put together a room full of people who like have capital or have deals, they're active and passive, or just stick to one group and just bring together the club of those people?
Well, I mean, I think it's always good to have a sense of community and
Hmm.
bring people together. I think the challenge that you might find there, and this actually came up in a call I had a couple of weeks ago with a gentleman that ultimately decided to come on board and hire me as an advisor. But
Yeah.
he said, Brad, I don't know what I'm doing wrong. He said, I'm going to a bunch of events. He said, this past year, I probably spent $30,000 just going to event after event after event. And I've got very little to show for it. Like, my ROI is close to zero.
Yeah.
And I said, well, share with me the types of events you're going to. He said, well, I've been to Race Masters and I went to the M1 event with Mark Droz, and I went over here to another event that Rod Cleef was putting together. And I'm like, well, you can stop right there. I know the mistake you're making.
Yeah.
And I said, what you're doing is you're going to events that are largely tied around what you're doing. You're in the
Hmm.
multifamily space. You're going to multifamily events, which naturally makes sense. They're teaching you how to raise capital. They're teaching you how to get into the multifamily space, but they're not teaching you how to raise capital, or they're not putting you in an environment where there's actually investors in the room. Think about it. Everyone
Right.
there is just like you. They're looking for capital too. There's no big check writers there. Let's
Right.
compare that to my events. I'm going over
Yeah.
here, and in my room, I get who? Family offices. I've got registered investment advisory firms. I've got angel investors, and you're going to be in this room over here with check writers. Do you see the difference in the two events? He's like, yeah, I
1000%.
see the difference.
Yeah.
That's why you want to come on board so that you can get into my events in the rooms that we want to put you into. And
Hmm.
naturally, was at the event in Palm Beach with me.
Right.
So I think that's one element right there. The second element is most people as capital raisers will naturally always start the journey with either family and friends or
Mhm.
just accredited individuals,
Right.
investors, because that's easy. You can host your own local event. You can meet people online in groups like Facebook or whatever. You
Right.
can buy a list of accredited investors and do an event locally where you live. But
Hmm.
you're going to get to a point eventually where you've got a nice portfolio,
Yeah.
you've had some success, and then there's going to be the desire for doing bigger deals. And there's a huge difference between raising, million, $2, $3 million to go out
Yeah.
and buy a $6 or $8 million property, and then going out and trying to raise $25 million to buy a 60 to $80 million property.
Right.
To buy that big asset, which is the kind of stuff that Cardone and others are buying, these big 400 unit properties,
Hmm.
you need the help of the family offices. You need those 5 million, $10 million partnerships.
Right.
And so I think as you learn, you grow
Hmm.
into just a bigger capital raiser. And that's why I consult $1 billion companies today, as
Hmm.
well as also mentor new people that are just getting started in the industry. It doesn't matter where you are in this capital raising journey. When you look at a mentor that's raised 2 billion, I've raised money from every source you can imagine, not just the accredited investors.
Yeah.
I've created dealer distribution. I've raised
Mhm.
money from family offices, RIAs. I've raised money from sovereign wealth funds,
Right.
raised money from insurance companies, pensions. So as people progress, and they get bigger as a organization, they can continue going to that next level
Mm,
and just start raising greater and larger amounts of capital with our
right.
network and people that we have access to.
That's good. Good. So you think it's valuable to create mine's is going to be an investment club. So you think it's valuable to build out that network because it's more of a club, more like I wanted to be more like a Tiger 21, but for real estate.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think
Okay.
it's wonderful that you're doing that. I mean, I know Tiger 21, I know a lot of the active members. And I think if you're able to build something like that, it's going to be very, very valuable to you because the end of the day, it's who you're connected with
Yeah.
that will ultimately make the big difference in your success and also, of course, success of all the other people that are part of that community.
hmm So for other people that
Yeah.
are listening to this, because I worked with Tony, I got the list and stuff like I said. So Tony's a good guy. As a matter of fact, he calls a lot. He's really good at following up, make sure everybody has
Absolutely.
everything. So he's a great resource. But as people are working, well, like guys who are coming to you, because when you were in San Diego, we bumped into each other at that other what's it called? Audio. It was a family office RIA event.
Not the Jetson Capital. It was,
Starts with an A.
yeah, I can't think of it off the top of
Yeah,
my head.
yeah. But
Recover
yeah,
me.
for sure. But and I've reached out to a few of the people that were there too. And great just meeting you there and I was like, who should I meet? And you
Mhm.
grabbed the book and you were like, the board members, you need to focus, maybe make these connections. This is the thing that I tell people why you have to talk to people who are great at what they do. Because it's those
Mhm.
little things that people can miss. So people
Yes.
were talking, like I was asking, I was like, dude, like, what do you think some of the biggest mistakes they are? And you pointed out a few. Um, but I think that's one of my takeaways that I got from you. Is like be aware of who you're around. Like,
Oh, absolutely. 100%. There's a old saying, and that is if you're not satisfied where you are at this point in your journey or in life, take a look around you and, you become the average of the 5 to 7 people you're spending most of your time with.
right.
And so being around with winners and people that are going places and people that are doing big things, it expands your mind. You start thinking, you start looking at the possibilities. You're going to change. If you stick around with a bunch of losers, you're going to get pulled back. They're not going anywhere. More than likely, you're going to plateau and you're not going to grow. And so that's one of the easiest things in life to do. It's to attend these events,
hmm hmm
meet people, talk to people, and take action. When you go to these events, you can get a lot of knowledge, but knowledge that is just knowledge not backed with action or implementation
Right.
isn't going to get you anywhere. Like I tell people, look, you can get on a webinar with me, you can interview me on your podcast, you can buy my books. It ain't going to change your life at all.
That's
Is it's
right.
going to open you to the possibilities of what you might do, but you spend 2 days with me at one of my boot camps, or
hmm
you decide to hire me to work alongside you as a personal mentor and an advisor, that will change your life.
Yep.
Absolutely, no doubt about it. But you got to be willing to do some of the work. I think the biggest challenge people have is they work with a mentor or coach and then they just don't do the work. And they
hmm
obviously turn around and go, oh, your program failed me. It didn't work. No, it
No.
didn't.
Yeah.
You failed yourself.
That's right. That's right.
You
You know
didn't do
what?
the work.
And for me, I love real estate. I'm a real estate guy, so I've always done single family, multifamily, mobile home parks, land, stuff like that. I'm always like, you can always tell in real estate who's doing what because
Oh,
either, 'cause
absolutely.
yeah, it's tangible. You either have something or you don't. Um,
Yeah.
and that's a very black and white, cut and dry. You're dealing with bankers, you're dealing with people with money, you're dealing with something that's tangible in their head. So like you don't have a lot of BS going on in there. So it goes right back to what you said. There's
Yeah.
no blaming. It's like you take the information, you do something with it. So yeah, I appreciate that. So
Mhm.
is there one thing you can give everybody before we jump off? Like do this and this, like aside from, I mean, I think people should join your group. I love the fact that it's capital connectors, right?
Mhm.
I love that.
Capital.
So I'm definitely gonna I need to become a part of that. I do. Right now I've been focusing on the retail investors and I got a plan over this next
Sure.
12 months. But I need to also, I always said, like I tell my kids, I'm like, you need to reach up, not just sideways. Um,
I love that. Yep.
yeah,
Yep.
because if you're constantly reaching sideways, you're just gonna get stretched out. But if you reach up, you know, you'll get a little taller.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
is there one thing you can kind of tell people like, hey, do this and this will help you as it relates
I
to
mean, I
capital
think
raising or anything?
think there's a couple. Number one is, you need to become a student of the business,
Mm,
whatever business it is you want to learn. And you need to absorb as much as you possibly can about that, take it in, and then obviously apply it, take action. I think the second thing is you need to really understand that the life that we live and the outer expression of ourselves is largely driven by our underlying habits.
hmm
And, you either have good habits or you have poor habits. And one of the things that I think successful people have is this innate ability to continually do the things that they want, that they need to do, not that they want to do. Like, most people that are hugely successful will tell you it is the consistency that has made me success. I wasn't born luckier. I wasn't born stronger. I wasn't born smarter. It's just showing up, and putting out every day, even on days that I didn't want to.
Let's
And a
go.
lot of people just don't subscribe to that mantra.
Yeah.
Personally, I do. There are
Yep.
days I wake up that I would just rather lay in bed and just go back to sleep. But no, man, I'm up, I'm out the door, I'm doing my 5 to 6 miles, and I'm hitting the fitness center later that afternoon because that's just who I am and that's just the way that I'm wired. But it's the small consistency over time that has this compounding effect, just like compounding money.
Right.
One of my good friends down in Atlanta has this quote, and it's incremental is monumental. It's
Mm,
just that incremental effort every day, man, just compounds over time. And when you look at the top performers in any area of life, it's just because they're consistent. So
mm,
it's the consistency. And third, really is if you want to raise capital and you want to do this, get a mentor, get a coach. Certainly, I'm biased to some degree, but also start having conversations with people.
right.
Don't be at all bashful to walk up to people and start talking to them and asking questions about their investments. What have you invested in that worked? What have you invested in that didn't work? Are there certain things you look for? And then learn from that and apply it to your own life.
hmm
Unfortunately, now I think so much is done with our cell phones and Chat GPT and trying to learn. That's really not going to help you
Right.
because there's nothing behind that is a real person that cannot connect you to another real person. And it's all about making strategic connections. That's what moves the needle. And it's just getting out there and just really having a big vision, a big dream of what you want to be, and understanding that there's probably some gaps. And rather than saying, how do I do this, which is the
hmm
wrong question, you should change the letters and say, who can show me how to do this?
Yes.
Somebody out there more likely has done what it is you're wanting to do. Well, seek that person out and start asking some really good questions.
Right. Wow. Wow. Dude, you know what? Honestly, a lot of the things that you probably 90% of what you were saying, again, that's why I wanted to, why I'm doing this. I also learn. I'm constantly
Yeah.
learning. I'm like, dude, reach out to somebody just like you said and listen and learn and apply. Bigger thing is apply. So I appreciate that. I really
Yeah.
do.
Thank you. Yeah.
For sure. Well, cool. Well, thanks so much for doing this, for being on. I learned a lot. I'm sure everybody listening learned a lot. If anybody wants to reach out to you or reach out to anything that you're doing, how do they go about finding you right now?
Just go to the website and reach out to us through our platform. It's just www.bradblazar.com. It's Blazar, no E's. Or just find me on Instagram, shoot me a DM, and my team will get right back in touch with you. We'd love to talk to you. We'd love to get you on a free consultation. We call them a capital clarity call. It's absolutely free. And more than that, we'd even love to see you at one of our upcoming events that we do throughout the year, like our next boot camp taking place in San Antonio. So it's pretty simple to find me. You just put my name in Google, and there's going to be a whole lot of information that pops up from all the shows and all the
Mm,
events that we attend throughout the year. So, but the easiest way is just right through our website.
for sure. There you go. I love that. When's the one in San Antonio coming up?
So the next event that we're hosting is April the 9th and 10th in San Antonio, Texas. You can get all the information on our website.
Okay.
Just go to the website and you'll actually see information on the boot camp. And it's going to be great. We have lots of great speakers, professional athletes. We have some celebrities that show up from time to time, both true celebrities. I mean, major celebrities, as well as just what I would call social media celebrities.
Yeah.
But, people are always surprised at who comes to my events. And I think the coolest aspect of them is literally we have people that cross continents that travel
Mm,
literally around the world to get in the room. We had people from Australia at my last event that literally traveled over 24 hours. We've had people show up from England that have been at the event. So it's a global audience. It's really cool to meet these people that are entrepreneurs from other countries around the world and learn from them and see what it is they're doing. Because raising capital, again, is something that you can do anywhere in the world. It's not where you live, it's not how old you are, or what religion or what color your skin. It's just following a proven blueprint and a proven system. And that's why people in Australia are raising lots of money. That's why people in
mm.
Canada are raising lots of money. That's why people in England are raising lots of money, all using our blueprint and our systems, because it's repeatable.
Right, right. And I'm gonna
And
see
it
if I can
boils
make it
down to
out there.
systems, concepts.
Good, good.
Yep.
And I love your system. Like literally it's probably it is the best system. And I look at a lot of stuff and I pay attention and I try to find the one that resonates and the one that's the most real, right? And yours is the most real and realistic for somebody to actually execute on. So I love that. I'm
Right
gonna try to
on.
make it out because my daughter's in San Antonio. One of my daughters lives there.
Oh,
So
great.
that would be a good trip for
Yeah,
me. Okay. Cool.
absolutely. Yeah, we'd love to have you. You bet.
Awesome. Cool, cool. So hey, thanks so much for being here with me today. And I appreciate you. And anybody looking forward to raising capital, connecting, and do it in a big way, do it with Brad. Trust me, he's the man.
Appreciate it. Thank you so much, Victor, for being a great host. Anytime you want to have us back, just let me know.
I will for sure. Take care.